Gratitude and grief don't have to cancel each other out. Grief for our sorrow and gratitude for God's presence live together in tangled harmony. And when we remember that truth, gratitude becomes a conscious, mindful act of worship that we can wrestle toward even when life hurts. Well, good morning and welcome. My friend, author, mother, and wife, Kendra Brookhuis, writes a monthly letter that she sends out by way of email called Present Tense. The paragraph I just quoted came from the most recent of those letters. In this month's edition, she speaks of the tension between gratitude and grief and the often misunderstood nature of those two things in life and living. When we are grieving, we often fail to think of what I call a corollary to grief, that is, gratitude. What's more, we often can't see how those two things, grief and gratitude, can live together in harmony with each other. But Kendra says it's possible, even if that harmony is tangled, to use her word to describe that relationship. Now, Kendra is no stranger to grief. In perhaps one of her most tragic times in life, she and her family lost a baby to miscarriage in 2015. And the memory of little Eliza Brookhuis sometimes becomes fresh to them all over again, even after these intervening years. Now, I don't know what it's like to lose a child. However, my guess is that grieving will always be part of their lives and that some days will just be heavier than others. So, as a Christian, Kendra certainly has the qualifications, if you will, to write about both grief and gratitude. It's telling that she speaks of wrestling toward gratitude as a mindful act of worship. Now, dropping into a mindset of gratitude during a period of grief is not a naturally occurring automatic thing. Sometimes one has to wrestle with the idea of gratitude during grief, and sometimes one has to intentionally work to move oneself toward gratitude in that wrestling period. It can sometimes be difficult, incredibly difficult, to worship God in gratitude for His presence in our lives in the midst of unimaginable grief and loss. And the questions always seem to arise. Why me? Where were you, God, when this happened? How do you expect me to go on in life and living? Why do you allow these kinds of things to happen? And many more questions, all of which have no pat and sure answers. Instead, we're left with the questions unanswered and the unwavering presence of God Himself telling us that He loves us and that He's enough for us. We dare not allow our questions to overtake us in despair and unbelief. Yes, as I said, there are no answers for the things that happen which impale us on the javelin of grief. Those platitudes about a fallen world or about our having to bear a cross, they just don't cut it in moments of grief and loss. The presence of God, both within us and beside us, however, can cut through some of the darkest of times and cause us to say, as did Job of old in one of his darkest times, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." And also notice that Kendra calls gratitude a conscious act of worship, something intentional, something specific, something planned, something premeditated. That premeditation, that intention, needs to be something that is inculcated into our beings, our daily lives, such that when grief comes, and it assuredly will come to all of us from time to time, we will at the same time be able to worship in gratitude for the presence and comfort of the God of heaven and earth, even in the midst of our suffering and grief. Grief and gratitude, strange bedfellows in the minds of many. May you learn, along with Kendra, to worship in gratitude for the presence of God, even in the face of overwhelming grief and loss. Blessings.